Thank you. Brothers and sisters, we're happy to welcome you to this funeral this morning. It's good to have so many family and friends here. This is a special occasion, and I'm especially thankful for the gospel that takes the sting and the bitterness out of something like this happening. We got a call this morning from Elder Packer, and he expressed his sympathies by the members of the Forum of 12 Film Authorities about passing of Tim. I know when Dad died, we called him first, but I always knew Tim was great, but I didn't think to call in Salt Lake. But they were sympathetic with what's happened here with our temporary loss of Tim. Our opening song will be by the congregation, number 134, I Believe in Christ, after which Tim's father-in-law for the Farnsworth will give us our opening prayer, and then we'll go down to the program as outlined.
I Our Father in heaven, we thy children, and humbly bow our heads before thee, give thanks for the many blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful, Father, at this time to be in such wonderful surroundings and facilities in order to pay our last respects to Timothy Hoyt Anderson. We're grateful, Father, for the gospel, for the way of life we're taught to live. We pray that thy Spirit be with us as we endeavor to live the principles that we're taught. We're grateful, Father, for eternal life, for the knowledge we have that we can be together again. We're grateful, Father, for Tim's life. He has been so instrumental in teaching so many of us, teaching us the importance of living the principles of the gospel, the importance of being good friends and helping one another. Tim has been so helpful to the young people. He has influenced so many lives in a way that we all want to have better testimonies and live the principles of the gospel. We ask thee now, Father, to be with us during this service, and particularly be with Tim's family and friends, that they will not suffer any dramatic emotional experience as a result of this passing, that they will understand the importance of life and how life is to continue. And we ask you to be with those who participate in this program. They will be under thy inspiration to be able to carry out their responsibilities in a manner pleasing unto thee, and do it in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, first be favored with a musical number, "O Die for an Angel." And if Tim's sisters and sister-in-laws will come forward now, we'll have that song.
I just first of all want to say how honored I am to have been asked by Janet to give this eulogy for my big brother. I'm very privileged to say that I think I probably knew Tim better than anybody except Jana. I spent a lot of time with him throughout his life, and I suppose it's the measure of a great man that the more you know him, the greater he is, and the more you know his inner thoughts and workings, the better person he seems. Tim was born on December 26, 1958, on his sister Lynette's birthday. His birth was extremely difficult, almost cost Mom her life, and Mom said that was one of the few times in his life that Tim ever caused her much pain. He was the 11th child in the family, including his stillborn sister, and was absolutely adored by his 3 older brothers and 6 older sisters. I wasn't around, but that's what they tell me. He spent his early childhood in Arizona and in Utah. He was a very happy child, always had a sense of humor from the time he was very young and liked to joke around and keep people happy. Tim was not perfect. A lot of people in our ward in Houston thought he was, so I had to straighten him out. But in fact, I'll have to admit that we fought quite regularly as children. But he was a great brother. He sometimes accused me of things I didn't do. One time he wet the bed and he blamed me for it. But I did a lot of things that I didn't get in trouble for that he took the credit for. Tim was blessed with good friends throughout his youth. We had what I would consider an ideal situation there in Provo growing up. Our backyard went into the Kiwanis Park there, and we had just wonderful friends and neighbors, good people that set good examples for us. And many of them are here today. It was touching to see them and think back on the great times that we had there in the Provo 13th Ward. Tim was always quite small as a child, which again was surprising to those people that knew him as an adult, because he was not small at all as an adult. But he was quite small, and the fact that he started kindergarten at age 4 meant that he was always the youngest one in his class by far, and very small for his grade. But he still did well in athletics. He loved athletics throughout his life. He had a real passion for all sports, and he did very well as a child. As I was reading through his book of remembrance and seeing the many awards and certificates that he had received, he was an excellent athlete and very determined. His athletic career as a child was hindered by 2 consecutive summers. He broke his arm once on a stunt on a bicycle. Another time falling out of an apricot tree, and that hindered him. But he worked hard through his youth. I think our father probably had a greater influence on Tim than any other single person throughout his youth, and Tim tried very hard to emulate our dad and his example of resolute honesty and service to others, and basically just being a happy person. Tim had a real zest for life. He loved life, and he loved people. One summer day when Tim was 16 years old, an event happened that was one of the great moments in Tim's life. That was when Tim was introduced to Jana. I recall it was Monroe White, our neighbor, that introduced him to Jana. And Tim fell harder than I think anybody's ever fallen for a girl. He was whipped completely and totally, and that never changed for the rest of his life. He was the epitome of loyalty to his spouse, and oh how he loves Jana. Tim, in high school, was not always the confident person that he became later. He enjoyed high school and he enjoyed music and had successes in those areas. One event that was an interesting event in Tim's life that I will never forget. Tim was the first chair trumpet player in the orchestra, and every year Provo High would put on Handel's Messiah, and Tim was the soloist for that. And he knew his part very well. He was an excellent trumpet player, but on the night of the performance, his mouth went dry from nerves or whatever, I guess, and he didn't have any water. And frankly, his solo was not a good performance. It was, and to this day, when I hear that song, I get sweaty palms and my heart races because that was a hard thing for him. But Jana bailed him out, and we went home. He went home himself after their performance, and we couldn't find him. And I went out in the park in the backyard, and Tim was sitting under a picnic table in the backyard, and he was devastated. But Jana came by not too long after and brought him a book of coupons for dates or whatever, and restored his confidence. And I've always appreciated that. Tim finished high school and went on to BYU because of his age. He was able to go to BYU for a couple of years before his mission. He did much better at BYU than he did in high school. He studied hard and was an excellent student. He left on his mission to Quebec, where he excelled, and he had a wonderful experience as a missionary. And I think his confidence grew. Tim always had a strong testimony. He never doubted the gospel. I don't think Tim ever did anything bad in his entire life, honestly. And he had a testimony when he left, but his mission really confirmed that for him, and he had wonderful experiences and saw many people's lives changed. And he loved that mission experience. He mastered French very well, and just a few weeks ago when I was with him in the hospital, one of the nurses spoke French, and Tim would still speak with her. And Tim and I would speak French, and his French was still excellent. Excellent French. Following Tim's mission, he came home, and he was still very much in love with Jana, and he had to wait a couple of weeks while Jana was on a tour in Europe, I believe, and that was absolute agony for Tim. He lost weight, he couldn't eat, he was a mess. But finally Jana got back, and they were soon after engaged and married on August 22nd, 1980 in the Provo Temple. And what a happy couple they were. Some of my fond memories are spending time with them, eating lunch. Jana would fix us lunch in their little apartment south of the BYU campus. Tim and Jana had an early experience with the passing of a loved one when their first little boy, Timothy Troy, was born very premature and only lived a couple of weeks. And I think Tim developed empathy from that experience as well, even more than before. Tim and Jana both graduated from BYU in 1982, and Tim took the CPA exam that fall, and he passed the CPA exam all 4 parts the first time, which, for those of you that know that stuff, that's impressive. It's impressive to me. It took me 5 times to pass, and Tim was always extremely intelligent. He began work at Arthur Anderson in Houston, and he did very, very well down there. He was very respected and loved. I went to work at the same place just after Tim, in fact, he quit the day that I started. I went down, followed him down to Houston to be with them, and we've been down there since most of the time. But I worked at the same place that he did right afterwards, and I was amazed at how the people that he worked with loved him. All the secretaries especially just thought that he was so wonderful because he was so kind to them, and he had a great influence on people. He had an influence on people and was a good missionary. Tim stayed with Dr. Anderson for a couple of years and then began his own CPA firm with a partner, which has continued ever since. And Tim was an extremely successful businessman. He did very well. His clients loved him. They respected him. He was honest, and Tim did very well. He was an extremely successful person in all facets of life. He became quite an expert in the tax area, and I was a beneficiary of his expertise. I still, I'm not sure what I'm going to do now, because I would call him whenever I had a question at work, and he used to threaten to bill my company for his consulting, because he would solve most of my research problems that I would run into for me. And he was very good. He was excellent in computers and developed a very successful practice. Tim had an amazing ability to concentrate. He could work very quickly and concentrate on one thing at a time, which sometimes led to a bit of absent-mindedness. But it was hard to get mad at him when he would miss an appointment because he knew he never meant to hurt anybody, and he was always so sorry. He was more concerned about his absent-mindedness than anybody. But I don't think he ever got over that. Bless his heart. I just want to say a word about Tim's athletic prowess down there in Houston. Tim, I guess he was a good athlete in high school and stuff, but down there he was famous. He really was. He was quite a basketball player. Our ward won the region championship 6 out of 8 years in a row and took second the other 2 years, and Tim was always the obvious MVP of the tournament. He got better and better. I think he was a much better basketball player 4 months ago than he ever had been before, and he never lost his passion for that. He was also an amazing shortstop in softball. He used to play a shallow left field, basically, and he could still throw the runners out because he had an amazing arm. In football, everybody wanted to be on Tim's team because they knew that team would win because he was an excellent quarterback. Tim had many church callings, and the influence that he wielded down there was really something to see. It's been very touching these last few days. The funeral down there in Houston. Tim was the Young Men's president on 2 different occasions in our ward there in Houston, and the boys really loved him. And I think Dale will talk a little bit about that later, but he also had a great impact on people when he was the Elders Forum president, and when he was the high counselor in charge of temple preparation. He prepared many people to go to the temple. He was a great home teacher. He served and gave. He and Jana gave so much to people down there. It's hard to imagine a ward being more devastated by the loss of a member of the ward. In the sacrament meeting last week, the testimony meeting went on for over 2 hours, and the only reason they stopped it then is the other ward was beating on the doors to get in. But it was just one person after another that just wept and told of the great example that Tim had been for them, the great influence that he had on their lives. Tim and Jana had a great gift for music, and were always willing to share that. And they participated in many plays, sang constantly in church programs, and were so much appreciated in that area for the service that they gave. Tim was really a great musician. He wrote many wonderful songs that I always wanted to be his agent. I thought we could have made a lot of money off of his songs, but about 3.5 months ago, Tim began to experience some problems with his vision, and up to that time he had been pretty healthy. I guess he had a little more sickness this year than normal, but he was basically healthy. And week after he began to experience double vision, he began to experience severe pain in his leg. And the doctors were very puzzled, couldn't figure out what was wrong, and finally the pain was just so excruciating that Tim basically insisted that they go in and do surgery on his back to try and repair whatever it was that was wrong. And that was the point that they discovered a tumor. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but obviously it happened very fast. And we don't understand, but we accept it. Tim had great faith, and so I spent a couple of weeks with him, basically all day, every day, and talked to him about this a few weeks ago. He knew that God loved him, and he did not want to leave. He loved his family so much, and he couldn't understand that there was anything more important for him to do on the other side than what he had to do here. But he was not afraid of death. I asked him one time, I said, Tim, you think you'll make it? You think you'll make it to heaven if this does take your life? And he said, I sure hope so. But he was very tranquil about it. He had an inner peace. Throughout Tim's life, he never wavered. He was such an honest person. And he endured so well to the end. And we have great faith that he is now happy and with those that he loves. And I just want to express my love to Jana and the children. And I hope that we can help her in the future and help their sons to know what a great man that Tim was. I know that God lives and that he is in control and he is all-powerful and completely just. And eventually we will understand this thing. And this is my prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, now I have a medley of songs by nieces and nephews. Tim has 94 on one side, and I don't know how many farms are 36 on the other side. We saw these sisters and sister-in-laws up here. What an army. I've met a lot of these people, and it's something to see families like this. No black sheep. Not one of them I want to hide from you. Not one of them I hope with me. Good people. Where are we going to have these string all out up here then? Why don't you come on up? I think it's all those 1,200, Jenna?
Daniel was a prophet, he rebuked the sin. The blood he threw Daniel in the lion's den. Angels come the lion, the kingdom saw. Daniel's vows were grateful, he obeyed God's law. Follow the prophet, follow the prophet, follow the prophet.
oldest and the meanest of all the sisters, so I get to begin. I remember very distinctly when Tim was born. Of course, we had Christmas, and that night, Mother was madly ironing things. She always ironed things before she went to the hospital, so I knew it must be the sign that she was going. And Daddy took Mother to the hospital that night, and I tried my best to stay awake. We were so excited. And early in the morning, I'd fallen asleep and I heard Daddy's voice. Guess what? We have a little brother. Well, this was after 7 daughters, so you can imagine how happy he was to have a little son. And then when Tim was brought home from the hospital, I remember Mother laying him on the bed in the bedroom, and we all got to inspect him, and he had a rather pronounced nose, which was always one of his good features. And he had a little skinny face, and he scratched his nose, and he had little freckles right across his nose, and I remember that just as distinctly as if it happened yesterday. And we were so excited to have this new little brother. Tim always had a lot of enthusiasm for life. He was in everything and on everything. And the girls loved him and showed him off to everyone. In fact, my cousin Cynthia said she got sick of my bragging about my brother because I thought he was the most beautiful, handsome, intelligent, talented child that had ever come to earth, and I let everybody know it. His older brothers thought he was an up-and-coming star athlete, so he rarely went anywhere without a ball in his hand. And I'm sure that's one reason he became such a good athlete. He had good trainers. Jim and I, my husband and I, had the opportunity of working with Tim and Dean, and it's hard to even say Tim without saying Dean because the two were almost inextricably always together. And they used to haul hay for us and worked up on the summer range, herding sheep, one of their great experiences. I remember they had the meat they were eating, and it was in a sheep camp where there was no refrigeration. They decided to quit eating it one day when they went and cut a hunk off, and there was maggots in it. And they kidded us about our cement mush that Jim used to make for them and the greasy eggs, but they never complained. They did inwardly, but they never did outwardly. But we had a lot of fun together. Tim was one young man that I never hesitated to love people. I remember even as a deacon, he would lean his head on Mom's shoulder after he passed the sacrament. He didn't care if anybody saw him liking other people or loving them all his life. He was very, very warm and affectionate. Thursday night, I was talking to Kathy just before Tim passed away, and she was in the hospital room with him, and he said after a few minutes, "Well, who is it, Kathy?" And she said, "LaDonna." And I heard him say, "Tell her I love her." And then he said, "Tell her I love her so very much." We've been back visiting the birthplace of the prophet. Some of the experiences there, and I couldn't help but think how Tim was very much like the prophet Joseph Smith, very cheerful, always happy. He loved people and people loved him. And I just want to tell Tim, I love you too, Tim. And we hope to live worthy to be with you again. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. On my 8th birthday, I got the best birthday present in all the world, my new little brother Tim. And my mother, as they Jill said, had a little bit of a hard time with him, so she wasn't there for my baptism or confirmation, but that was all right. And like LaDonna said, we were so happy to have this little brother. And I recall as we sang as sisters together, Tim and Dean would accompany us sometimes and perform a little bit. One time we were singing away, and there was Tim had gotten on the drums while the group had taken a break, and he was beating away on the drums behind us, and we started laughing so hard we could hardly keep singing because he just was a natural. With everything he did, it seemed, he fit right in accompanying us on the drums. The latter part of April, I received a phone call from Tim and Jana, and they told me that I was the lucky one that had the matching bone marrow for Tim. There are 6 things that have to match in order to be a match. And I was the only one of all the brothers and sisters, and I felt so honored. So I flew down to Texas to be with Tim. And I felt like it was a very spiritual experience to be in his midst. I went down again later, and I've never seen anyone suffer so much and so long as I saw Tim suffer. And yet, every word that came out of his mouth was so kind and loving and appreciative. The nurses and everybody loved him. And I could see how suffering refined him to even a higher plane. He received a priesthood blessing for an elder Richard G. Scott, one of the apostles. And Janet told us about this and told us that Elder Scott told him to have faith and obedience. And so I felt like I wanted to increase my faith and obedience. And I did have great faith that Tim would be healed. As I fasted and prayed for him, I would always have a peace come over me, and I felt like this is the Lord's way of saying he's going to be all right. And even up until the end, when he was so sick, I just felt like a miracle would occur, and God would heal him. So it was quite shaking for me. Tim Janet called and said that he passed away. And so I turned to some scriptures for some comfort. The one that came to mind was in the Book of Mormon when the people of Alma were put in bondage, the Lamanites, and they were not allowed to pray, and they were given heavy burdens. And so in their hearts they prayed silently. And the Lord did not lift those burdens, but he made them strong so that they could carry on. And I know that the Lord is giving this blessing to Jenna. He'll bless her and compensate all her precious children. Also, our seminary teacher around the corner sent some little articles over that I read, and I envisioned from these stories of Tim's great work on the other side. I know that he's busy and he's teaching the gospel, and as we sing the song, "Oh, that I were an angel," he is literally an angel, and he is spreading the gospel. His influence continues. And I want to just share a little bit of a note I've written to Tim and Jana after I stayed in their home. I said, "Thank you for your generous hospitality to me and mine," because my baby was missing there, and my daughter LaDawn was there helping them. "I've loved staying in your beautiful, comfortable home. I've learned to love even more your precious family, all so sweet. I've learned some great lessons from both of you, Tim and Jana, as I've watched you through this ordeal. I've never seen anyone suffer so much, so long as Tim. He truly is a great, great man, truly loved by the Lord. His sweetness, kindness, humility," I think that's something that stuck out to me. "Despite his greatness, he was so humble and willing to do whatever he was asked. His love and appreciation for others pours forth in his extremities. He's truly enriched my soul for all eternity. I love him deeply. You've increased my and my family's love and faith in the Lord. Some great blessings have come through this. The Lord has blessed us, everyone." And I want to confirm to you that I know that God lives. And I've learned a little more that he doesn't answer all our prayers the way we think he's going to. That we love him anyway and know that he knows what's best. And that he will give us the comfort necessary to carry on. This testimony I give in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I wanted to take just a minute to share a few thoughts. First of all, I need to express to my own mother her courage and her persistence to continue to have children. God was about to have Timothy there again, what a treasure. And even toward the end, her life truly was in danger. She had faith and she did what she was able to do. And she brought forth so many blessings to our lives by continuing to be faithful in her calling as a mother. Recently, Well, last Saturday when or Friday, I guess it was, when she called me and told me that Tim had been put on life support system and probably would not be. But this was the end. I responded very poorly, I guess. I just didn't accept it. Didn't want this to be the answer that we've been praying for. Our family's been reading the New Testament. Every chapter we read about the healings that Christ performed, and about even raising people from the dead. And I kept thinking, medically, Tim isn't going to make it, but maybe a miracle will pull him through. And so when I realized that that wasn't going to be the case, I just felt like we had been somehow abandoned. And my faith just fell. And as I experienced that for a few hours, I finally just thought, this isn't the way that Tim would want me to feel. He had such great faith in the Lord. And so I prayed for comfort, and it was the most miraculous experience how so suddenly and so gently the spirit of comfort came into my soul. That this was the Lord's will, and that Tim was going to do a great work. I thought it was very interesting how his passing was the same day as President Benson's funeral, and how they had General Myers sing "Follow the Prophet" up here. That was one of Tim's themes in his life, was to follow the prophet, and how fitting that particular day was for his passing. Following the prophet. I had a testimony that the Lord does comfort and bless us in our times of need. He has done this for me many times, and especially at this time. And I want Janet to know how much I love her and admire her. I say this in Jesus Christ's name.
I had a wonderful experience of going to Texas a couple weeks ago and being with Tim and Jana. And I thought for my part, I'd just read a few little things out of my journal that I kept while I was there. This is the first day I arrived. I said he cried when he saw me. He was so appreciative. In fact, he is unwavering in his thankfulness. I too had tears come to my eyes when I saw him, not because it was a hard thing to bear for me, but because I was so thankful to be there with him. The remainder of the afternoon, I laughed, I cried, I held his hand, I held his arms, I rubbed his head, I kissed his head, I ate all his dinner, which he was happy about, and mostly just tried to take in the joyousness of the moment. He was so very worried about Lynette. He kept asking for her every few minutes. He would say, "Where is Lynette?" We had to keep assuring her that she was in recovery and that she would be up very shortly and that she was fine and made it through. A few days later, when Jan's parents called, he cried as he told them, "Thank you for raising such a wonderful daughter." He cried again as he talked about his children, his love for them, and how they had to put up with him. It was all very touching. There was a doctor in the hospital, we called her the pain doctor, and Tim kind of had a little tear that just came out of his eye all the time. It was probably from his pain. Wednesday, May 24th, towards evening last night, things were getting a little hairy. After doing all we could do for him, Tim and I sang Love Is Spoken Here and I'm a Child of God. Then he closed his eyes and slept for a while. It was glorious. A few days later, he's not taking nearly the amount of pain medication he was. He asked so innocently, "Do I look better today, honestly? Do I look normal?" He wants to be better so badly. We even pretended we were eating racket balls back and forth to each other. He'd say, "Here's one for you, Richard," and then pretend to serve the ball. What a guy. June 4th, where did the time go? Well, the worst happened. within the hour or two will be taken. Off the respirator, and the Tim Anderson of this world will be gone. But only the physical, this great man of influence will live in the hearts of hundreds and hundreds of people. I learned so many things from being there with Tim. He was a constant example. I remember after one long night, and I don't know what his mornings were like. I don't think he had a lot to look forward to because, like Dale said, the progress was like watching grass grow. It's very slow. But he was always chin up in that morning. He sang in a boisterous tone, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And he meant it. In closing, I want to share the thought just before we took the respirator off Tim. And Dale was there beside. And he leaned over and he kissed his cheek and he said, "See you in a few." And I know that it will be long for Janet. But I hope that in time, when we're all together again, we can look back and we'll look at it as just a few. The name of Jesus Christ in you.
Guess the other two sisters aren't going to make it up again. We had a meeting last night, we're having trouble getting through that one too. We'll have a musical number of the family choir. Each life that touches ours for good. After which another Brother Dale will speak to us. See, you want to stand where you are, or do you want to come up here?